Well, hi and welcome to another segment of While We're Apart. We were talking yesterday about attitude, and I made this statement: attitude makes a difference. The Bible says that a merry heart doeth good like a medicine. And so we can have a merry heart, we can have a good attitude. It's really a choice that we make. If you're a child of God, greater is He that is in you than he that is in the world. So the wherewithal is there to have a good attitude. There's an old song, and it was probably before your time, but it goes something along the lines of, sometimes I'm happy, sometimes I'm blue. My disposition depends on you. Some of you old-timers would remember that. The rest of you, you can Google it. But does your disposition depend on other people? May I say, don't let others dictate your attitude. You know, there was once a seriously handicapped man, and he had been stricken with rheumatoid arthritis at the age of 15. 30 years later, he was totally paralyzed except for one finger. He could barely speak. He was totally blind. But he had a string tied to that one mobile finger that could turn on a recorder. And he wrote for a national magazine. He authored books. He led a happy and an influential life from his bed because of his attitude. You know, I've been to London, and one of my favorite places there is the Bunhill Cemetery, and in it you'll find John Bunyan, you'll find Isaac Watts, you'll find a lot of famous Christians, but you'll also find the grave of Daniel Defoe. Now, who was he? Well, you might remember that name. He wrote Robinson Crusoe. And Daniel Defoe gave us some good advice through his fictitious character, Robinson Crusoe. You know, the first thing that Crusoe did when he found himself on a deserted island was to make out a list. And on one side of the list, he wrote down all his problems. On the other side of the list, he wrote down all of his blessings. So on one side of the list, he wrote, I don't have any clothes along with me here. But on the other side, he wrote, thankfully it's warm and I don't really need many. On one side of the list, he wrote, all of the provisions were lost. On the other side, he wrote, but there's plenty of fresh fruit and water on this island. On one side of the list, he went down and he fashioned every negative aspect about the situation there was. But then on the other side, he put the positive aspect. And really, folks, that's life. There's always something to be thankful for. You know, it's easy to find ourselves on an island of despair. And perhaps it's time that we sit down and make an inventory of our blessings. Maybe it's long overdue. So look for that silver lining. There was an explorer by the name of Thomas Hearn, and he was, along with a party of explorers, set out on a rigorous expedition in northern Canada to find the mouth of the Coppermine River. And a few days after they had set out, thieves stole most of their supplies. Hearn's response to the apparent misfortune, it can really inspire all of us. For this is what he wrote. He wrote in his diary, quote, the weight of our baggage has been lightened. Our next day's journey was more swift and pleasant. How do you keep a guy like that down? So what kind of attitude will we have? You know, start your day right. Not with a sigh. In fact, there are those who get up in the morning and they say, good morning, Lord. Others who say, good Lord, it's morning. You know, every hour ahead of you is a gift from God. Those who once lived and died don't have that opportunity you have today. You know, in the third of a century I pastored here at Fargo Baptist Church, I buried a number of good friends. You know, I'm thankful I'm still alive. I'll be gone soon enough. Life is so brief. So don't hold back. You have been given a very tiny slice in light of eternity. So stop centering on everything that's wrong. You know, there was an old song, and some of you would remember that song, Born Free. I think Andy Williams sung it. And there's a line in it, and it says, the world still astounds you each time you look at a star. So let the world still astound you. I mean, have you ever Googled a website that explains the galaxies and the stars? It's absolutely amazing. There are treasures yet to be found out there. There's truth yet to be unveiled. And God isn't dead. So keep seeking Him. And put the Lord in the core of your day. Start it with Him. and live life to the fullest. There was a 92-year-old woman, a little tiny gal, and she was living in a nursing home. And every day by 8 a.m. she was fully dressed. Her hair was fashionably fixed. Her makeup was perfectly applied, and yet she was legally blind, living in this nursing home. Well, one day they were overhauling her tiny little room, and after many hours of patiently waiting in the lobby of the nursing home, she smiled sweetly when they said, "Your room is ready." And so she maneuvered her little walker to the elevator, and she said, "Oh, I'm sure I'll love it." And the attendant said, "Mrs. Jones, you haven't even seen your room yet. Just wait." She says, "That doesn't have anything to do with it. Happiness is something you decide on ahead of time. Whether I like my room or not, it doesn't matter how the furniture is arranged. It's how I arrange my mind. I've already decided to love it. It's a decision I make every morning when I wake up. I have a choice. I can spend the day in bed recounting the difficulty I've had in the past, or even parts of me that aren't working any longer, or I can get out of bed and be thankful for the ones that are. Each day is a gift. And as long as my eyes open, I'll focus on the new day and all the happy memories I've even stored away just for this time in my life." Wow, what a great attitude. You know, everything can be taken from a man but one thing, and that's his attitude. To choose your attitude in any given set of circumstances is really to choose your way in life. So live to encourage others. Build up others. Focus on the future. In fact, let me give you a verse in closing today. In Philippians 3:13, Paul said this, "Brethren, I count not myself to have apprehended, but this one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind and reaching forth unto those things which are before." He speaks from that point on of pressing toward this mark. But notice he says, "This one thing I do," and then he mentions forgetting those things which are behind. And so if you have some emotional baggage from the past and it's affecting your attitude, do what the apostle said, forgetting those things which are behind and reaching forth now unto those things which are before. You still have the rest of your life ahead of you. So God help us today to live a day with our attitude making a difference, being contagious in a positive way, encouraging and lifting up other people, and being a blessing to them. May the Lord bless your day.
When we asunder part, it gives us inward pain, but we shall still be joined in heart.